Hey, it's me, Vicky Marie. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this crazy world we're living in. Oh, sorry, all the notifications will start coming through now. So, yeah, what we're going to talk about, or who we're going to talk about in this video, is this little boy, Arthur. Now, a lot of you will know this case. This is a British case of the red rum of a little child. Very similar. There's a lot of similarities with the Preston Davey case. I've been wanting actually to talk about this case for quite a long time because it's got this, there's so much involved in it. Similar to the Preston Davey case, it's not straightforward. That someone to care, and sadly, it was the wrong people looking after them. This is a case of someone actually, or a child, killed by one of their own biological parents. But the conspiracy of circumstances leading up to this poor boy having to go to that horrible parent is very similar to what happened in the Preston Davey case, and you'll see as we go along. So normally, I've saying for years I started doing a true crime channel. I don't like doing children cases. They're very upsetting, not only for me but probably for you all as well. But I just feel like I've been sort of almost directed towards it now, especially after the Preston Davey case. I feel like Arthur, he's not the only one. He's not the only other one. There are lots of high profile cases that's been in the UK. I did cover Sarah Sharif extensively right from the beginning of that case, right through to when the perpetrators were sentenced. But I haven't covered any particular case. A lot more Baby P, Star Hobson. You could go on, and then the high profile cases. So how many cases are there that maybe we don't really get to hear about? Or, I'm sure we normally get to hear about them if the child actually dies as a result of whatever's going on. But, there's children out there now like Arthur, like Preston, who just haven't died yet. Anyway, I want to give you a warning, of course, viewer discretion advised. So yeah, I decided I'm going to do a playlist of these kind of cases. Save Our Kids, I'm going to call it. The thing is, there's a lot of play made by the far right, isn't there? Save Our Kids, the groom gangs, this, that, and the other. Don't kick up such a fuss about people who abuse and children, and biological children, not only adopted children. And the thing is, these people as well, they come from all walks of life. Look at Preston's adoptive parents, a teacher, a high-flying executive. Then we had Sarah Sharif's dad, he was a taxi driver. Then we've got, now, years ago, my sister-in-law, bless her, she's quite elderly now, but she's still going. But she, of course, she died many years ago. She was a soaker in the sort of, I think she retired probably quite a long time ago that she was a soaker. But I always remember her saying, she never discussed cases, like gave names or anything like that. But I never forget when I was a teenager, I said, oh, what's that job like? It must be difficult being a social worker. And she told me that the worst case of abuse she had ever seen in her career, and she was a social worker in sort of for 40 odd years, the worst case she had ever seen were doctors. Doctors. So that this is the problem. Sometimes we think, sort of middle class, especially sort of white, professional people won't ever abuse their children, but they do. They do. And I think I think my mission in life, I think God's directing me towards talking about these children. And I think I was listening to the Pope Leo. He was saying he never wanted to be Pope when he was young or when he was older, but when God calls you to do something, you can't say no. That's how I feel at the moment. I feel like, although I've tried not to do cases about children, it seems like it's impossible who's going to do it. Very few people do, and it's not popular, is it? Because well, YouTube doesn't like it for a start, so they don't push it out into the algorithm. They don't like it all when you're talking about terrible cases involving child abuse. It's not nice for me. It's not nice for you in a way. But then, who's going to talk about them? We're just going to pretend it's not happening. And the other thing I want to show is it could literally be anyone. Could be a grooming gang, Muslims, or it could be immigrants. But it could also be your doctor, your neighbour, your teacher, like Monster Dad 1 in the Preston Davey, a salesperson that you're with. Could be anybody. Could be a man, could be a woman. It's not gender, it's not only gay people. There's a lot of homophobia because of baby Preston's adoptive parents. But the thing is, they didn't do it because they're gay. They did. They're twats. There I go swearing again, sorry. Twonks. This is the common denominator. They're all twonks, but they could be perfectly respectable people, if we think of it like that. And then there are children that come from, chaotic households with not much money and all those things that probably would never, those families would probably never be allowed to adopt because their family is not suitable enough. But they're loving households, maybe they have much money, but they're loved. They're not abused, So this is, I think, the point that I'm going to be trying to get over on all these cases that I'm going to be doing, and I will do more as we go along, is it could be anyone. You can never think just because someone's a professional or, lives in a nice house, a show home, Monster Dad at 1 and 2, in Preston's case. You can never assume that means that their child or neglect their child. There's children living in houses of rich people with locks on the refrigerators so they can't eat. Do you remember, oh God, what's her name? Jodie Hildebrand, and the other one, she was the actual mother of the children, where one of her children, this was over in Arizona in the US, one of the children escaped. He was skeletal. They were being kept in panic rooms and not allowed to eat. These two, well, it was a mum and I don't know if it was a romantic partner, friend that she'd moved in. Scientists, they were rich, had loads of money, and they wouldn't feed these children. So I think we've got to be aware that these people walk amongst us, and a lot of them are very respectable. I never forget, years ago, a nephew of mine was over here visiting. Anyway, I won't go through the whole story, but he ended up staying with me most of the time because who he should have been staying with, which was his step-grandma, she wasn't very nice. She would take his friend, and they were 11. Round about that age, 11, and she would make them say to McDonald's, but she would make them share a Happy Meal. I mean, I just remember thinking, what? Because they weren't, I could see that with a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, or whatever, tiny children. But, he was 11, and his friend, I think, was a little bit older. She was a little bit older. They were having himself Happy Meal each. You know, I could never do that. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know what you think. But what I'm trying to say is not everybody is kind to children, even their own children sometimes. You know, even biological children. That's the case we're going to find here with Arthur. His own biological father, what he did to. But there's other similarities with the Preston Davey case, that poor little Arthur, his mum was also and is also a convicted murderer. So, you know, we had with Preston Davey, of course, it all came out about Sarah and how when she was 13, 14, she had killed a pensioner along with her friend Lily. Not her friend wasn't called Lily, the pensioner that they killed. You know, and a lot of people, you know, she's in her 30s now, and I just cannot. To me, it seems obvious Sarah loved Preston. Bear some responsibility, because if she hadn't done what she did all those years ago and she had substance abuse issues, yeah, Preston would have been able to be with her, wouldn't he? But you know what? You know who knows that more than one? Her. She knows it. She's suffering enough. I decided I'm not going to be able to her in any way. But I still remember, you know, I still think it's important to remember Lily, who was her victim. But that's, you know, God will judge her. And she's being judged, isn't she, by everybody else? So I'm not going to do it. But in this case as well, Arthur, his mum, she also murdered somebody. And that's the reason why she couldn't have Arthur. Because she was in prison. I think she's still in prison, though she didn't get much of a sentence, to be honest. She murdered her partner. But I think it's also clear with her, she loved Arthur. But she bears a responsibility, because if she wouldn't have killed her partner, Arthur would have been with her and wouldn't have had to go to his dad, who he and the stepmom, they're the ones that neglected, tortured Arthur and eventually murdered him. So it is a crazy world, isn't it? But we're going to talk about today. The other thing is, I don't want us ever to forget these children, because, you know, this was a few years ago now. What lessons were learned? And then when we look at Preston Davies' case, you think, well, you know, because there were big red flags missed in this case from the social services. Is it impossible for the social services to see red flags? You know, why wasn't something done about Arthur as well, same as Preston? You know, we saw all the red flags in Preston's case, all the injuries, you know, the things that the monster dads actually said, especially Monster Dad 1 to his friends. It was having dark thoughts about him. All those clues just went, was that because of political correctness? Because nobody wanted to be accused of being homophobic? Well, if so, what was the excuse in this case? You know, or maybe they're just crap generally. Maybe they're not trained properly, the social workers, or maybe it is so difficult. You know, maybe we don't appreciate how difficult it is, because, you know, their main aim is to keep the child with the biological man. But of course, Preston was taken away from his biological mum. So it's a mess. So it needs a debate. While we're talking about it, these children are remembered. And if it saves one child, you know, that I'm sure for a while now, after Preston's case, the social workers in general surely will be extra vigilant. But of course, it last does it, and they just go back to, you know, I don't know, house, you know, social workers, how they trained, how they picked, what you know, what qualifications do they need? How do you decide if a child's being abused or not? Now, Arthur is older than Preston. There's a very distressing video of Arthur saying, you know, I think it must be a video with how nobody loves him, cares about him. Very distressing video. All the details in this case are distressing. So I want to warn you of that. It's trigger alert, isn't it? Okay, so thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about all these children. At least they have us to care about them. I was thinking about it and I thought, I wonder if, do you think they're like me up in heaven? I mean, it just, these are the things I hope for. These kids now, they're sort of like in heaven, being spoiled. Into them, maybe. Who knows? We don't know for certain. We'll find out one day, but not just yet, hopefully. So thank you for caring about all these cases, not only the children's cases, but all the cases that talk about. Just thank you for watching. Thank you for you support me it's like moral support. It's like I've got one to talk these things over with. I know you share my sense of outrage. Most of the time, we all feel the same about these cases. So thank you for that, because it helps me. It's important. Sometimes I think, God, if I can get through a case without crying, but then better that I do a case and blubber all the way through it than just ignore it as if it never happened. So yeah, thank you for liking. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed. We're nearly because now don't forget I have 2 channels. I've got the True Crime Chats. I'm streaming to both at the moment, and Vicky Marie Chats channel, and a combined subs of nearly 8,000 subs now. So thank you for that. Thank you for those of you who like, share, hype, etc. the videos. Those are all free ways you can help my channel. Some of you, of course, you go that little bit further. You are my members, my elite chatterati, and we have a members live every fortnight. There's one this week, this Thursday, where we do talk about lighter things, try and leave true crime behind for a little while, because true crime, especially involving children, it hurts your soul, doesn't it? It does hurt your soul. You feel it, and it stays with you. These kind of cases, I don't just do video and then it's forgotten. I think about these children especially, just constantly, just can't believe how they were left like that. But anyway, also thank you to those of you who buy me coffees or coffees, because on my True Crime Chats with Vicky Marie channel, it's buy me a coffee.com. It's be there where then I'm here on the Vicky Marie Chats channel. It's Ko-fi. You buy Ko-fi. Also there's memberships both, but I do the members live stream to both channels. Thank you to those of you who send me PayPal or emails, leave nice comments, all the nice things that you do that are above and beyond just watching, which is brilliant as well. I think that's it for my thank yous. Let me take off the banner. Oh yeah, and don't forget, on my Ko-fi page is merchandise. I still haven't done a video about the merchandise. I will do. I will. Yeah, you can buy mugs such as this one. I'm not in the mood for trunks today, or Vicky Marie and a cup of tea. In fact, you can choose your message, whether you want a photo or not. Literally can customize it yourself. Mugs, t-shirts, there's wine glasses, special wine glasses engraved. We have a bottle of wine. There's a bottle of wine. So there's lots of things. So check out the merchandise, and thank you for all of you that have bought anything from my shop. So I think that's it. So hello, you lovely lookers. Thank you for watching. Thank you for caring about these children. Hello to Replay Crew, the same. Thank you so much. And hello to the chat, which I'm going to come in and see is anybody chatting. Yeah. I also just quickly want to say commiserations to my Scottish followers, at which I have a lot of followers from Scotland. Not a very good result last night in the World Cup. Sorry about that. So, hi Lily and hi Tracy. Hope you're both well. It is Saturday morning. I've been getting all my days mixed up this week. I thought it was Sunday, but it's not. It's still Saturday. One more day. Just this week, I haven't known whether I'm coming or going. Okay, so I think I've said let's go to this case now. Where do I start with this case? Because really, Arthur's case started, in my opinion, when his mum, Olivia, let's have a bigger look at a closer look at Arthur. Another adorable child. Look at his smile. Just gorgeous. This is him with his mum, Olivia. And I think, although Olivia, she did a terrible thing because she killed her partner, Gary Cunningham. Apparently, relationship. I think there was a lot of domestic abuse in that relationship from her towards Gary. Um, Let me just show you a picture of Gary because he's important too. He is a victim. She stabbed him to death one day, just left him outside the flat on the stairs. Olivia had terrible problems with alcohol and substance abuse. Of course, you wouldn't do these kind of things unless you had some sort of problem, would you? So Gary, poor Gary, she murdered him. And that was the reason she was put into prison. So very similar to Preston Davey's case, because of course Preston Davey's biological mum is a murderer as well. It's a mess, isn't it? Really. Anyway, that I will be do a video one day sort of about Gary and about how he lost his life. But of course, unconsciously, if you like, or unwillingly, it led to 2 deaths. Because if she hadn't have killed Gary, if Olivia hadn't have murdered Gary and gone to prison, look how alike they are as well, her and Arthur. They're the absolute double, aren't they? And I'm sure Arthur loved his mum and I'm sure she loved him. But you know what? She did what she did. She went to prison. And if it wouldn't have been for that, Arthur would not have been sent to live with his father, which is this man. And it was this man. God, talk about resting bitch face. I mean, do you know what? She looks really nice, doesn't she? This is Arthur's biological dad and his new wife or new partner. They had other children. And they're the ones that murdered Arthur. But if it wouldn't have been for Olivia, what she did to Gary, Arthur would probably still to this day be with her. Might not be, nobody's a perfect parent. It may have been a chaotic home in some ways, but at least he would be still alive. I think she does love Arthur. Unlike his dad. His dad did not love him. And probably a lot of it was the influence of this resting bitch face here. God, look at her face. Do you know what? You would look at her, she'd scare you just by looking at you. She's scaring me now just looking at her. I think you can so often just see the evil in people's souls when their eyes look out at you. I'm sure she had a big influence. I mean, I'm not exonerating him. Arthur was his biological son. But do you know what? She was probably jealous that Arthur was Olivia's daughter. Maybe she felt that he was still hung up over Olivia. There'll be lots of things going on in the dynamic there. She, they talk about the wicked stepmother, don't they? Fairy stories and things, but there's truth in it. I mean, there are lots of lovely stepmoms as well, of course. We mustn't forget that. But I mean, she's straight from Cinderella, isn't she? You can see in her face. she's not a good person. I'm just not a good person. So, I mean, what's happened to their other children? Are they in care? You know, it's like these ripples go out and out. Are they being looked after properly? Now, the other children that were in that household, oh gosh, do you know, it's a shame, isn't it? These children, they're innocent victims of people's frailties, adults' frailties, aren't they? You know, and the thing is, a lot of children who do get treated badly when they're young, they don't grow up to treat other children badly, you know, their children or whatever. Quite often they're very particular later on, you know, they don't want their children to go through what they went through. So I don't buy this defense that sometimes they give, oh well, they had a terrible childhood. Well, you know, having a terrible childhood does not give you then the reason to go out and take it out on another child, does it? So, you know, um, and when you hear, and I have to give you a warning again, when you hear what was done to Arthur, it is terrible. And you know what? It makes, you know, little Preston, let's have a picture of Preston up actually. I've miss his little face sometimes. So, you know, little Preston, we've been upset by hearing what happened to him. And, you know, I've been like so upset about it because I mean, why did God turn his face away from Preston? Why was Preston, why did he have to endure all that? But you know what? If Preston wouldn't have died that day, Preston would be like Arthur. It's still enduring it as he got older. You know, it's sort of, you just think that it's awful to think of, but at least now, as we speak, Preston is not suffering and he hasn't got any pain, and hopefully is in, you know, the next world being spoilt rotten with Arthur and all the other little ones. You know, Jesus said, suffer the children to come unto me. So we can only hope that, can't we? But of course, the ideal scenario would be that they just won't get abused in this world. Didn't have to go to the next world to get some affection and love and caring. Fuck's sake. Anyway, so I'm going to put a picture of Arthur up, and I'm just going to read I'm reading from the internet. I'll just tell you that now. The information about what happened to this little one. So, oof, as I say, just trigger warning, very, very horrible case. So, I'm starting off with Wikipedia. So, this all happened in June 2020, so it's 6 years ago, and Arthur was 6 at the time. Now that means that now he would be 12, 17th of June. Oh my goodness, his birthday, 17th of June. So just 3 days ago would have been Arthur's 12-year-old 12th birthday, wouldn't it? Similar. When was Preston's birthday? Was it Tuesday? And this it can't be. Can't have been born on the same day, surely. Let's see. Arthur was born on June the 17th. Gosh, that's within a day of each other, their birthdays. So he was living in the West Midlands in England, in the UK, and he was killed in his own home by his biological father, Thomas Hughes, and his stepmom, Emma Tustin. And this was during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, it could have been that that was one of the reasons that signs got missed. Do you think? Is that one of the possibilities of, you know, is it because of COVID? I don't know what the restrictions were for. I don't know what the restrictions were for social workers and things. Surely they couldn't have. They couldn't have just stopped doing visits. Surely, they couldn't have stopped doing visits, could they? You know, is that why those good old red flags were missed? But you know, the thing is, as far as Preston Davey was concerned, there were regular visits, and they were still ignored. So I don't think we can just blame it on the COVID pandemic. So I'm just going to tell you what he was subjected to. Trigger warning. He was subjected to prolonged isolation, repeated physical assaults, food deprivation, and episodes of salt poisoning. Salt poisoning while he lived in this household with his biological father and his Thomas Hughes. I haven't put them in the. They need to go in the hellhole, don't they, at some point? And Emma Tustin. Let's just have another look at these lovely people again. Now, the thing is, the other reason why I want to show you their faces is because I've not covered this case before. If they ever get out of prison, I hope everybody recognises who they are. I'm not sure what sentence it was. But don't get the dad, Monster Preston Davey's got a whole life order. I doubt very much if they've received a whole life order because there has to be sex crimes involved in that, I think. So anyway, we'll see. Let's put Arthur back up. Gosh, what, you know? She just look at her face. Horrible woman. You can just see it. Eyes are the windows to the soul. She looks more evil than him, doesn't she? So yeah, he was subjected to all those things. And by the time emergency services were called, we're going to hear the 999 call, he was malnourished. He was covered. I'm sorry. More than 130 bruises. 130 bruises. In this, and then he suffered from a catastrophic, what killed him was a catastrophic head injury inflicted by Tustin, the woman, the stepmom. In December 2021, Tustin was convicted of murder and his biological dad was convicted of manslaughter. So, little Arthur, he was born 17th of June 2020, but his parents, Olivia and that one, separated in his infancy, and he was initially cared for by his mother, Olivia. But the thing about Olivia, a very strange person, you know, I think she loved but actually she'd only been in the TAs. You know, she was a very strange woman, but she put on a very plausible front. You know, these monsters don't look like what they are, do they? And she is in a way a monster, although I don't think there's any evidence that she abused Arthur at all. She murdered her partner, Gary. You know, Though I think that was quite a toxic relationship. I don't know if it was. I have watched a video about this case. He kept going back to her. You know, sometimes you just can't escape from these toxic people, can you? You never think they're going to actually stab you and murder you, even though you might fight. Anyway, as I say, that's for another video. But that's what she did. She stabbed him, and she just carried on watching the telly and left him to die in the stairwell outside their flat. I don't know if Arthur was even in the house at the time when she did it. You know, so she's not perfect mum, is she? But I do think that she loved Arthur. And I'm going to read out her statement. When Arthur was murdered by his stepmom, she released a statement. I'll be reading that out later. Anyway. So he was initially cared for by his mother, Olivia Labinjo Hughes. What's all these double barrel? Can't people just have a normal name these days? She killed her partner in February 2019, and responsibility for Arthur was transferred to Thomas. He later moved Arthur into his, partner's home during the restrictions, where the couple's behaviour became increasingly neglectful and abusive, with Arthur forced to spend extended periods isolated from the rest of the household, despite concerns raised. So again, red flags. Come on, red flags. There was red flags. Concerns were raised. Nobody did anything. Come on, what's going on? What have you got to do? What have you got to do to get your concerns listened to? Just makes you wonder, doesn't it? So concerns were raised by extended family members, but no statutory agency intervened. He was just left to it. The case attracted significant attention across the United Kingdom, a bit like Preston's case, but has it actually made a difference? No. Prompting public discussion about the protection of children at risk of abuse and criticism of child protective services for their failure to intervene. So apparently Olivia and Thomas Hughes, they separated just before his second birthday, and they shared custody of him, but he lived with his mother. And then in February 2019, Olivia stabbed her new partner, Gary Cunningham, to death after a period of mutual domestic violence, it says here. I think Gary's family might disagree with that, but anyway, I don't know. I need to investigate into that more. This led to Thomas Hughes becoming Arthur's sole carer. He changed schools and he moved into an annex to his home with her. And according to his grandmother, Arthur was initially nervous, but quickly became a happy, well-rounded child. Then, August 2019, Hughes met Emma Tustin. Oh, on the dating site. Plenty of needs changing. Plenty of fish. Should be called plenty of twats or something like that. Plenty of twonks. How many people meet murderers on there? Or you say, oh, well, they met on Plenty of Fish. Twonks or twonkesses. She's a twonkess. Hi, Emma. Thank you, Lily, for putting up the red flag. Yeah. Plenty of twonks and twonkesses. Can't have any. Yeah, I'm going to be looking at Star as well, Emma. Star Hobson, Victoria Climby. I have all covered Sarah Sharif extensively last year when it was up the case. But I don't want to. I'm going to look at that's what I've decided. Look at all these cases. Baby Pig was. So Thomas Hughes met Emma Tustin in August 2019 on the dating website Plenty of Fish. He introduced his son to Tustin early in the relationship, and she later stated that she and Arthur were friends straight away. Whatever. As Arthur returned to school after the summer holidays, a teaching assistant stated she had no concerns about his well-being. Oh, well, that lasted well, didn't it? That stood the test of time. No concerns. However, the child's uncle noted that Thomas Hughes seemed to be becoming more stricter with the boy, and Arthur seemed to be more fearful of getting into trouble. Bless his soul. An official at Arthur's school noted that the child became less happy as autumn progressed. So she organised a meeting with Arthur's father and grandmother about her concerns that he was developing an obsession with topics such as guns, death, and the news, along with fears about being separated from or killed by his father. So how many more red flags do you need? When a 6-year-old boy or a 5-year-old boy, 6-year-old boy, is obsessed with guns, death, and being separated from or killed by his father, how many more red flags than that do you need? There was also an incident during a school nativity play where Arthur became upset when a baby doll was removed from its crib. In early 2020, Thomas Hughes took his son to multiple medical appointments, but the boy was not. Oh, God, I'm going to get really angry now. The boy was not diagnosed with any mental health problems. No, because the boy has not got any mental health problems. It's the fucking parents have got the mental health problems. Why are they even thinking that it might be the child that's got mental health problems? When a child starts obsessing about guns and death and being murdered by their parent, that is not the child's mental health problems. That is an abused child. You don't have to be a social worker to work that one out, do you? Then, of course, the COVID-19 pandemic led to the closure of all schools in the UK and a national lockdown by the end of March 2020. Listen, I'm sure there's lots of people did die as a result of COVID, domestic violence. Imagine if you were being domestically abused and you couldn't even get out of the house. And also your partner wasn't even going to work. You weren't even getting a little respite while they went to work, etc. I mean, the COVID pandemic, the lockdowns and that are responsible for a lot of deaths. I think, may have saved deaths as far as infections were concerned, but led to different sort of deaths, didn't they? Imagine being stuck in a little, imagine being stuck in a flat with a domestic abuser or parent, and you can't escape. How awful. Just awful. Let's put Arthur back up. We want to look at Arthur, don't we? We want to look at Arthur. This is a case from a few years ago, but look at him. Just like little Preston, they get their smiles wiped off their faces, don't they? Terrible. So, at the beginning of the lockdown, Arthur and his father were staying in Tustin's home, Though Thomas Hughes's mother asked that he and Arthur come to her house, he refused, instead deciding to move in with Tustin at her home in Solihull for the duration of the lockdown. Arthur told his grandparents in April 2020 he'd been pinned against the wall by Tustin, called a horrible, ugly brat, and then his grandmother found several bruises on his back. But Thomas Hughes returned to his partner's house and refused the grandmother's request to leave the boy at her house for longer. And so she reported him to social services. The grandma reported him to social services. What more can you do? The next day, a social worker went to visit Hughes and Tustin. She was told that Arthur's injuries had been sustained in a fight with Tustin's son. The social worker concluded that Arthur was very happy and safe. Is that social worker still working? Is that social worker who obviously is absolutely shite at their job? Are they still working? Are they still going round and saying, "Oh yes, safe and happy"? So this social worker concluded that Arthur was very happy and safe. There were no safeguarding issues in the household. Well, they were really good at their job, weren't they? Thomas Hughes said that Tustin coached the boys to lie about the incident. This is what he said later, and had warned him they would lose custody of their children if he did not cooperate as well. So he threw her under the bus, it seems. And then the incident was later reported to the police by Arthur's uncle, but it had no effect. In May 2020, Arthur was frequently made to stand in the hallway for long periods of time as a punishment for his behaviour. Tustin reported these incidents to Thomas via text messages. Oh, that's echoes of Monster Dad 1 and 2, isn't it? Audio clips of him crying. Oh my God. In these clips, the child could be heard crying for his grandmother and uncle. And at one point, he said, "Nobody loves me." The couple used insults to him, such as Satan, Hitler, devil child, weasel, and various swear words to refer to Arthur. Thomas Hughes would frequently threaten violence against his son. Oh, he's a big man, isn't he? A big man. What big man? Threatening violence to a 6-year-old. Oh, what a big man he is. I hope they're sorting him out in prison as well. Oh. Tustin said at one point to Thomas, "I want you, but I don't want him," referring to Arthur. By the end of the month, Arthur was moved out of Tustin's son and daughter's bedroom, and he was made to sleep on the living room floor. He was made to sleep there even when the other children were not there. Hi, Kelly. Oh my God. When his school reopened on the 8th of June, he was not in attendance. Thomas Hughes was contacted by the school about the matter, but provided various excuses for the child's absence. The couple installed a camera at home to monitor Arthur during his isolation. Arthur spent 35 hours of a 3-day period between 12th and 14th of June in the hallway, being forced to go there by his father and Tustin. He was slapped by Tustin for entering the living room. The camera also recorded the couple and Tustin's children enjoying food, leisure activities, but Arthur was not allowed to participate. Jesus, sorry. Oh my God. This is another case. Imagine the jury watching. I expect the jury were excused for future jury service after this as well. Another traumatic case. On 15th of June, Tustin took Arthur with her to spend most of the day at her hairdresser's house. Throughout the 6 hours that she was there, she forced him to stand by the door and frequently shouted and swore at him. The child collapsed to the floor as they left at the hairdresser's, but was not helped by... Why didn't this hairdresser say something? Tell you what, if my friend brought a child round to my house and treated him like that, I said, fucking, I wouldn't get to take that child out of the house. The police would be there straight away. Could you imagine your friend coming round? Oh, I brought my child with me, but he'll stand there in the hallway. Or your grandchild or whatever. You just wouldn't have it, would you? Why do these people not say anything? So he apparently collapsed to the floor as they left the hairdressers, but he was not helped by either Tustin or Thomas Hughes when he arrived. Later that evening, Thomas Hughes belted Arthur's legs and later told Tustin, just end him. Oh my God. There's so much evil in the world, sometimes you just think, what the hell? And this was his biological son. So on the day of the murder, the morning of the 16th of June, so it's an anniversary this week, the day before his birthday. The day before, isn't that Preston's birthday? Oh yeah. Oh my God. So Preston Davey was born on June the 16th, 2022. This poor boy was murdered on the 16th of June and his birthday was the following day. Oh my God. Crikey. Crikey. What a horrible, horrible people. Do you know, the devil, definitely. Satan, they were calling him Satan. Satan was living in them. You know, the devil does work through people. How could anyone do that to a child? If they didn't want him, why didn't they go to social services or give him to the grandma who did want him? Why didn't they go to social services and say, look, we don't want him? Why didn't they do that? Why did they have to torture him? Twats. Total. I hope, honestly, I hope they rot in hell. Really do. They're going to hell anyway. Where's my hell emoji? They are definitely on their way to hell. You know what? You can't do that to children for absolute, not, you couldn't even do it for a reason, but not for, I mean, it's one of those, isn't it, where you're speechless. So, right, let's see. So, on the morning of the 16th of June, so it's Preston Davey's birthday, Arthur appeared on CCTV footage to be weak, in visible pain and struggling to lift his bedclothes. Thomas Hughes, Tustin and Arthur went back to the hairdresser's house, where Arthur was constantly shouted at the former two. So that hairdresser's a twat as well. Why weren't they on the phone to the police? The child was secretly given a drink of water by the hairdresser's partner, who later described him as gaunt, malnourished, and a poor little kid who was broken. Yeah, why didn't you phone the police? No good saying that at the trial. After getting home, Tustin went upstairs at about 2 p.m. Later at trial, the prosecution argued that she gave Arthur an overdose of salt. Twat, what a twat. In the bathroom at around this time, though Tustin denied this. Additionally, she photographed Arthur crying in the hallway at 2:15 p.m. So she's just like Monster Dads, Preston's dads. She's taking pictures of it. I mean, good that she did, really, because do you know what? These idiots, when they take these horrible pictures as trophies of how nasty they've been to these children, these are what help prosecute them. So they're thickos, apart from her. Imagine, so she's so sadistic, she's taking photos of it. Photo proof of what she's done. Just like Monster Dad 1. So Tustin is believed to have carried out the fatal assault at 2:29 p.m. when she went into the hallway where Arthur was located. Right, warning. She shook Arthur and she hit his head against a hard surface multiple times. The assault is believed to have lasted 1 minute. So don't forget this CCTV recording all this that they've put in there, these thickos. Evil, sick thickos. 12 minutes later, after phoning Thomas Hughes, she called 999 and told medics he had fell and banged his head. And while he was on the floor, he banged his head another 5 times. Oh my God. This is so similar to Preston's case, isn't it? Thomas Hughes wasn't there. That's why he's only been convicted of manslaughter. He wasn't actually there at the time. Tustin then took a photo of the dying boy, which he sent to Hughes. Oh my God, you sicko, you fucking sicko. Again, this is just like Preston. You know, that Monster Dad 1. Took the video of Preston breathing his last gasps on the bed. What a bitch. What an absolute bitch. Oh my God. I mean, what do they do the same in women's prisons to people who do these terrible things to children as they do in male prisons? I hope so. I hope she's suffering. Bitch, total bitch. God, the language is coming out. I'm sorry, I'm just so angry. What a bitch. And you can see it in her face. You can see it. God, wicked, wicked woman. There's a special place in hell for you. I hope you get there quite soon as well. So yeah, she took a picture of him and sent as he was dead or dying. Oh. So paramedics from the West Midlands ambulance service and officers from West Midlands police arrived on scene shortly after the emergency call was made, and Arthur was left with an unsurvivable brain injury. He was taken to Birmingham Children's Hospital, but doctors were unable to save him, and he died later that night. He was 6 years old. He was covered in 130 bruises. He'd been poisoned with salt, and that the extent of his injuries were comparable to torture. That's what the pathological report said. Yeah. So, of course, all these videos, audio files, photos were found on these twonks' phones. Significant evidence of abuse inflicted on Arthur was discovered in their messages. And Emma Tustin was convicted of murdering him. Now, what did she got? A life sentence with a minimum of 29 years. That's not a bad sentence as far as British sentences go, but should be over 30 years, really, shouldn't it? And she is being held at Peterborough prison. Thomas Hughes was convicted of manslaughter and sentenced to 21 years. Oh, he's at Monster Mansion. He's being held at Wakefield Prison. I'm going to do a video about that, about Wakefield Prison. That's where all the monsters go, isn't it? That's where Monster Dad 1 has definitely gone. And we're not sure about Monster Dad 2. Preston's parents, or murderers, let's say, not parents. The word parents with it. But Monster Dad 1 is definitely gone to Wakefield prison. They call it Monster Mansion because it's a very high security prison. They'll all be queuing up to have a go at him. Oh God, he's being held at Wakefield prison. So he's sentenced to 21 years. Oh, they said they were going to review the sentences. Oh, it's been increased. So Thomas Hughes, there was an appeal against the leniency of Hughes's sentence, and it's been increased to 24 years. Still not enough, though, is it? Still not enough. So apparently there was a national inquiry into the case. The review found that Child Protection Services had been involved in Arthur's life on various occasions and repeatedly have not intervened to help him. We're going to carry on looking at this. These social services, Child Protection Services, don't they care about these children? I mean, how many red flags can you miss? How many? You've got the extended family, the grandma. I'm just thinking, if this was my son, so my son meets some CUNT off Plenty of Fish, goes off, lives with her, and then I find out that she's abusing my grandson. And I go to social services and they don't do anything. I'd just go and get it myself and go off to Spain or something. I don't know. I just can't. That poor family, they tried their best. His uncle, his grandparents tried to save him, and social services just didn't do anything. Good God, terrible. Anyway, I'm just going to read you now. So I'm going to put up the picture of Arthur with his mum. So for anyone who missed it, there's other similarity with this case, with Preston Davey's case, is Arthur's mum, Olivia, is a convicted murderer. She murdered relationship with her partner, Gary, and she stabbed him to death. I don't even know if Arthur was actually there at the time in the house when she did it. But I think she did love Arthur, but she's in prison, so she got put in prison. That's why Arthur ended up going to his dad's. And really, she's going to feel guilty about that, isn't she? It's like she's got two deaths on her hands. Because if she wouldn't have killed her partner, Gary, you know, if she hadn't have killed her partner, Gary, she would not have gone to prison, and Arthur would not have had to go and live with those two psychos. So this is Olivia. Now, she released a statement from prison. And like Preston Davey's mum, I think Preston Davey's mum loves him, but, you know, she did a terrible thing to a pensioner. And we can't forgive that, but I do feel for her because I do feel. But you know, it was her own actions that contribute when she was younger that contributed towards Preston, and you know, she has to face that. I'm sure she does. To be honest, I'm sure that. So this now, just to let you know, she was only jailed for 11 years for fatally stabbing her partner, Gary Cunningham. So in the same year, you know, Arthur had only been with these twonks. It wasn't long before he died. Hi, Wesley. Hi, Wesley. I know it's disgusting, is it? The more I'm looking into it, I'm getting really angry and angrier. And I'm glad I'm looking at these cases. Because you know what? These should be full front, like these should be being talked about all. So his mom only stabbing her partner. So in the same year that he was killed, he'd only been there a few months. Anyway, this is what the statement she made from prison. How fit heroes, she said. You should have thought about that before you stabbed your partner, shouldn't you? He wasn't just my only child. He was my best friend. Never did Will remembered for his superpower. That will always be what I remember. And Arthur's superpower was his smile. He has got that beautiful smile, hasn't he? Same as Preston. You know, most kids have got beautiful smiles when they're, made happy. Marvel or DC, Arthur loved them all, from Batman to Black Panther, Aquaman to the Flash. He had every costume and action figure, and he would spend hours dressing up and pretending he had all their superpowers. Oh, I'm just going to show you this picture. Actually, this was a mugshot. Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? It's like, this is what you have to think of when you have children. If you do something terrible and you end up going to prison, your children are at the mercy of the care system. And, the care system, like Arthur had another parent, and that should have been a good thing. When Olivia went to prison, it should have been a good thing that he had his dad to go to, shouldn't it? But you can't just. Then he met that. Then he met the bitch on plenty. Yeah, they should, instead of plenty of fish, it should be called plenty of CUNTs. So he met somebody else, and she didn't want Arthur. But fair enough if she didn't want Arthur, but they should have gone to the social services and said they didn't want him. Or given him to the grandparents who did want him. The grandparents wanted him. There was options here. This is another case that didn't need to happen. Anyway, so this is Olivia. You can see that's her mugshot when she murdered her partner. And do you know what? 11 years. She was lucky to get 11 years. So apparently she was given an 18-year sentence, but it was reduced to 11. And she was quashed, her conviction was quashed, and she was convicted of manslaughter for a second time after a retrial. Taken into consideration when she was resentenced. Well, there you go. So she'll be out soon. She'll be having other children that she won't look after properly, I suppose. So she said that following the visit, to take the opportunity to focus on the life Arthur lived and to celebrate the beautiful little boy I knew and loved deeply. The details of Arthur's case are harrowing and incomparable, but I want people to know who Arthur was, from his huge smile, his personality, to his gentle, caring nature. All mothers are biased and believe that Right. Sorry, I think I went off there for a while. I'm back. I'm back in the room. I'm back in the room. I'm going to put Arthur's picture up. Yeah, it definitely cut off there, I think. So I'm carrying on reading this article. Let's put Arthur's picture up. Oh. Oh, hang on, I'm pressing the wrong button there. So, yeah, we put her and Olivia and Arthur's picture up. So I'm reading out the statement that his mum Olivia gave from prison when he died. When he started school, his love of reading became a love of learning how to write food. He would try anything, and like all children, he always wanted what I was having. I remember when he started school, every day on the way home, he would tell me what he had to eat at lunch. He would ask me what we were going to have for dinner. He adored football. He supported his beloved Birmingham in the team's kit. 17th of June. So these two babies, these two kids, who've had similar tragedy happen to them. They were born within a day of each other. I mean, they're different ages, obviously, but supported his beloved bird. This again, this is a nice picture of him in a paddling pool. So what I've noticed, Preston Davey, his foster parents have been sharing videos of him laughing, and that's been lovely to look at because we've seen enough, heard enough now of the abuse that he suffered. We need to know uh, these children. We need to know these horrible people. These children, they existed. They had lives. Even little Preston, these videos going around the social media now. He's laughing and joking, he's not joking because he can't talk, but he's laughing, being tickled, that is how Preston Davey was before those months have been as they were. So the same with Arthur. This is him in a paddling pool. Arthur was a happy baby, I think. For all that Olivia, what she did, and it's terrible what she did to to her partner, etc. Horrible, but we have to remember that he was happy. I think his mum definitely loved him, and I think he was happy with his mum. Anyway, so she's got to live with that, and I'm sure she is struggling to live with that. What Arthur loved more than anything was being outside around as soon as he could walk. By the time he was 4, he could name most, if not all, of the Birmingham City football kits. So there you go. That's Arthur as he was when he was happy Yeah, we're talking about a little boy who was happy, laughing and smiling like in that paddling pool. And then the next thing, um, he's talking about death and he's obsessed with, he's getting it. These are the biggest red flags of all. He's starting to get obsessed with death and murder and things. He's only 6 years old, and then they take him to a psychologist to see if he's got mental health problems. He didn't have mental health problems. He was being abused. It was as clear as day. He never had those thoughts. His mum's just said there what his interests were. Superheroes, and then suddenly he's getting obsessed with death and murder, and terrified his dad's going to leave him. So listen, what this boy has gone through. So his mum has murdered his sort of dad, effectively. Stabbed him. He's then had to go and live with his biological father. So that murder will have affected Arthur. He's old enough to know his mum was in prison for murdering her partner. So now he's with his dad and he's having these obsessive thoughts, twofold. One, that his dad might leave him, like his mum's left him, and the other, that his dad might murder him, like his mum's murdered her partner. Oh my God. And then when he starts having all these strange thoughts and his personality starts to change, and his extended family report to social services, bruises, he's losing weight, all those things, they send him to for a mental health evaluation check instead of looking at what's going on in this home. Remember that social worker in the report said, oh yeah, because he felt that Arthur was safe and happy. Well, they need a new job. I hope they've got a new job. If they're still a social worker, well, my God, how crap can you? The quality of social workers in Britain is not good, is it? Sorry, but it isn't. I know, you can miss signs, I'm sure, but I don't see how you can miss signs. How can you miss signs like bruising, the grandparents complaining, and you can miss them signs? This is a Channel News item from 2021, and it will be upsetting, just to let you know. But we're not going to turn our face away from these children. These cases are upsetting, but I'm not turning my face away from them. That's what I've decided. I am going to focus on them till, something changes. Right, let me share it. You have to let me know that you can hear it okay.
6 years old, he loved to read Arthur's favourite book, The Gruffalo. For the last year of his life, this little boy feared he was going to die, but nobody listened to his cries. Arthur feared he was Thomas Hughes, a father whose cruelty was incomprehensible, and on the boy. Together, they were accused of torturing Arthur to death. And yet, in the aftermath of the murder, they were filmed blaming the boy himself for his own injuries.
He's banged himself off the radiator, he's hit me, he's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on him again.
Oh my God. Oh my effing God. This bitch. Let's watch. Let's hear her again. What were you saying in your stupid Birmingham accent? Go on.
injuries.
He's banged himself off the radiator, he's hit me, he's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on the thinking step.
Oh, he's banged himself on the radiator and he's hit me, he's kicked me. Oh, poor me, you fucking psychopath. And he's just, oh, God. Oh, do you know what? I was watching something on Netflix the other day. It was not Jodie Foster. Yeah, Jodie Foster. And she was a vigilante in New York because she'd got attacked and her boyfriend had died, been shot and that, and she'd been beaten up, and she went off out there with a gun and started shooting all the bad guys. God, sometimes you think, God, you'd quite like to do that. I'm sure I could shoot her without even thinking twice about it. Now, I'm not explanating violence. I'm sure all of you will understand. It's just that I'm angry. But, she's a horrible person. So she's murdered him, tortured him, and she's saying, no, he hit me in the process.
He's then gone on all fours on the floor and I've told him to get up.
They're wicked, evil. There's no word for them, especially your own child, who you've got a duty of care to protect.
His grandma.
Arthur never had a bed. Hughes and Tustin had...
So that's the grandma who went to social services about the bruises. She wanted to have Arthur and she wasn't allowed to. God, what more can you do? So Arthur, he didn't have a bed, he had to sleep on the floor.
CCTV in the house so they could keep an eye on him. This footage is a difficult watch. It shows Arthur waking up on the day of his death. His frail body so weak after months of abuse, he could barely lift his duvet.
Oh.
Arthur was already known to the authorities. His dad had custody of him after his birth mum was sent to prison.
Why is that start? It's whirring. Sorry, it's whirring. I hope you can hear me. I don't know why it's whirring. Come on, stupid computer.
Prison for stabbing her new partner. His maternal grandma thought Arthur would be safe with his dad, but says Hughes cut her out.
They cut off contact from everyone. And Arthur, we loved him to bits. And as I say, we never saw him again.
This is where the abuse took place. Tustin's house in Solihull, the most affluent town in the West Midlands. Arthur and his dad had moved in here at the start of lockdown last year. It began straight away. He suffered degrading and dehumanising treatment, assaulted, starved of food and water, made to stand in isolation in the hallway for up to 14 hours a day.
14.
The couple often recorded what they did to the 6-year-old. In one clip, Arthur is repeatedly begging for food.
Look how skinny he is. Bless him. And yes, they recorded him. They're just like Preston Davey's monster dads. But anyway, good that they recorded him because that was the evidence, of course, that convicted them.
In another, he says over and over, "Nobody loves me." The details of what happened here.
Kelly, what happened was lockdown, COVID, so there was no school. And then when school started again, he didn't attend. So there was, I think the teachers decided there was no problem, nothing to worry about, he was fine.
Are harrowing. The jury heard that anything went at this house of horror with impunity. The torture took place behind the closed door, and yet the family were part of the wider community. Arthur went to a local school. The police knew of the family. Social services knew of the little boy. In fact, they'd visited him before his death. Despite all this contact with all these authorities, Arthur was tortured over several months without anybody noticing. The warning signs were there long before lockdown. Arthur started at this school in February 2019, the same month his biological mum stabbed her partner. In the following weeks, the school noticed his behaviour deteriorated. He was anxious that his dad would also be taken away from him. November 2019, his dad had a meeting with the school, telling them he was concerned how vulnerable his son was. A referral was made for mental health support. 5 months later, they had a meeting with children and adolescent mental health services, but no further action was taken. April 2020, his grandma noticed a bruise on his shoulder and referred him to social services. Social workers went to the house in a visit
Did you see that bruise?
They had a meeting with children and adolescent mental health services, but no further action was taken. April 2020, his grandma noticed a bruise on his shoulder and
to that bruise on his shoulder. Now this grandma, this is her son who's done this. This is not the grandma, this is, she asked her son to leave Arthur there with her. This is her own son who's done this. God, look at him, bless him. The size of that bruise.
Referred him to social services. Social workers went to the house in a visit pre-arranged with Hughes. Although they saw Arthur's bruising, the marks were put down to child's play and the case was closed.
Child's play.
West Midlands.
God.
Police also visited the family.
Now, where do these social workers get their degrees from? Timu. Where do they graduate
Contact
from?
with Arthur is now being...
Do these social workers graduate from Timu University? They can't look at a bruise like that and know that, and say, oh, it's child's play. Come on.
Investigated by the IOPC.
These are two people that have stood trial for Arthur's murder that are very manipulative, and they did manipulate agencies that were involved with them. And so they set up the perfect social services visit.
You're saying they manipulated social services, but the whole point of professionals is you're not supposed to be manipulated. Now, they say that this is bollocks, what she's saying. Sorry, it is. Arthur had a massive bruise on his shoulder. They didn't manipulate that. That was clear as day that this boy was being abused. No way that's happened through rough play between children. Looked like someone had hit him with a hammer, to me.
In terms of, it was the one day that they allowed Arthur out to play in the back garden, so that he was happy with his circumstances. It wasn't a case of they missed an opportunity. It was a case of that they were dealing with two very manipulative people.
Solihull Council told us nobody was available for interview, saying it would be inappropriate to comment ahead of a safeguarding review, which has now been launched. On the day of his death, a summer's day in June last year, Arthur had been at home with Tustin.
Talking about manipulation, but I only had to see that monster dad one of Preston to know he shouldn't have been in charge of a baby. I'm not an expert. I'm not a social worker, but I could tell within just watching 2 minutes of his interview, he's an immature, selfish narcissist. Something else that struck me a lot, that I've thought of a lot about that video when they were at the hospital. This is Monster Dad 1 and 2 with Preston. Made sure he got a coffee, didn't he? Made sure he got a coffee. I think if you rush your baby to hospital and he died or he was being worked on or whatever was going on, the last thing on your mind will be like, oh, I'm going to go and get myself a coffee, for fuck's sake. All about him, selfish. Now, if you're a social worker and you can't spot these people a mile off, you shouldn't be a social worker.
Suffered an horrific brain injury. She was found guilty of murder. Hughes was out, but had sent a series of text messages encouraging violence against his son.
Yeah, why wasn't he was only done for manslaughter? He was encouraging her to hurt him. He was saying things like, just finish him off. Fucking idiot. And they're so thick because they're sending text messages and they're recording it all. So not only they're evil, they're thick. Well, good that they're thick, but like oh, here's another unholy alliance, isn't it? This is another iconic pair of mugshots, like Brady and Hindley, the Wests, like Monster Dad 1 and Monster Dad 2. These people, they go down in history as iconic monsters. Well done. Well done. God, I hope this woman's suffering in prison. Just looking at her now, I just want to punch her right in the face. Yes, I see I'm getting violent now, but that's how I feel. That's how I feel. I would like to poke her eyes out. It's horrible, horrible, and you can see it. How could the social workers not see that woman's face and see evil?
Including one which read simply, "Just end him." He was found guilty of manslaughter. Police officers who interviewed the couple say neither of them have ever expressed any remorse.
And as I picked him up, he hit me and he kicked me out.
Yeah. Sorry, it's whirring, it'll come back.
As I was trying to get him up.
When Arthur died, he had 137 bruises on his frail body, the equivalent of one injury for every day of lockdown.
I was absolutely heartbroken watching the clips. I was inconsolable. I'd never, ever have believed it. And for my daughter to say that she's glad Arthur's passed, to be out of his misery, that's heartbreaking.
Oh, no,
a little boy who loved superheroes. His name now added to a long list of children known to the authorities, killed by those who should have loved them most. So there will be many investigations that have already been launched into this case, and questions for individuals, social workers, teachers, police officers, but also their wider organisations and institutions. We're expecting the results of those inquiries could take many months. But tonight, Arthur's grandma said that she wants him to be remembered for his smile and for the superhero that he was for their family.
Darshna Soni. Well, there have tragically been cases like Arthur's before, but following the deaths of Baby P, Victoria Clambier and Daniel Pelker, there were also in-depth inquiries to ensure such failures should not happen again. Our social affairs editor, Jackie Long, reports.
Ambulance service, is the patient breathing?
Barely.
Okay.
He's basically been treating us all like shit. He threw himself on the floor, his headbutt in the floor. I'm trying to pick him up in the process, his headbutt.
Oh my God, what did she say? He's treating us all like shit. He's throwing himself on the floor. This is the 999.
Our social affairs editor, Jackie Long, reports.
Ambulance service, is the patient breathing?
Barely.
Okay.
He's basically been treating us all like shit. He threw himself on the floor.
He's been treating us all like shit, she said. He's thrown himself on the floor. This poor little boy. Anyway, she got caught out. She got caught out because she bloody videoed it. Idiot.
Headbutt in the floor. I'm trying to pick him up in the process. He's headbutted me in the process. He's breathing. He's barely breathing. He's lost just at the minute.
The cruelty audacious to the end.
Oh.
Emma Tustin lying to the ambulance operator, blaming her 6-year-old stepson even as he was dying.
God.
Arthur's father in the background, as complicit in the lies as in the torture and abuse which eventually killed him. Arthur Labinjo Hughes now becomes the latest child in a long, grim list of children killed by the very people supposed to be caring for them. His story yet another, where the authorities failed to spot the signs of abuse.
This terrible tragedy has had a shocking impact on Arthur's family and across the whole community. The tragic loss of a young boy in such terrible circumstances is dreadful. We send our heartfelt condolences to everybody affected. The circumstances around the death will be now subject of independent review, the local child safeguarding practice review, and clearly it will be inappropriate for the partnership to comment ahead of the findings of this review.
There have been no shortages of reviews into the lives of children beaten, starved, abused, all known to services at one point in their lives. Kyra Ishak, Victoria Clambier, Peter Connolly, Hamza Khan, Daniel Pelker, Aisha Jane Smith, and now Arthur.
Well, there's loads more, isn't there? There's Star Hobson, there's and Sarah Sharif, of course. They've got a long list. And all these reviews make no difference.
One of the most striking features of Victoria's case, however...
It's been almost 20 years since the Laming review followed the death of 8-year-old Victoria Clambier, tortured and murdered by her great-aunt. It would, it was promised, mark an enduring turning point in ensuring proper protection of children in this country. That social services, schools and police would all work together to make sure abuse was not missed. Yet this case too will now look at the familiar question: who failed to spot the signs?
Well, it's a shocking case on a number of levels. It's shocking because it's a real tragedy that a little boy has died.
You know, everything they're saying now in this news report from all that time ago, you could say about the Preston Davey case. Why did everybody ignore the signs? How many signs were there in the Preston Davey case? How many signs were there in this case? And they just keep ignoring them. Why?
At the hands of his parents and carers when he didn't need to. It's shocking because we should have probably spotted this beforehand. It's shocking because clearly some people knew about how difficult life was for Arthur and didn't shout out,
Yeah, that bloody hairdresser. She went round to the hairdressers, treated Arthur like shit in front of the hairdresser and the hairdresser's husband. And they didn't go to the police. What's wrong with people?
Say. And it's shocking because it's happened and it's going to happen again.
Yeah.
The lockdown has exacerbated situations for children like this, and they're behind closed doors. They're invisible children.
Arthur's father and stepmother will be sentenced tomorrow.
Well, listen, they blamed it on the lockdown, and the lockdown will have had an effect maybe in Arthur's case. But look at Preston Davey's case. Oh, social workers were there every 5 minutes, but it still didn't save him, did it? They still didn't spot what was going on. You know, Monster Dad 1 even told his friends that he was having dark thoughts about Preston. Didn't make any difference. No lockdown in that case. So, you know, although, yeah, maybe in Arthur's case, the lockdown had an effect, but I don't think it would have made any difference. Just ignore it. Okay, Wesley, no problem. I'm nearly finished now anyway.
It will take many months before any review will establish what more could have been done to save a little boy who literally cried out, "No one loves me," though nobody seemed to hear.
Jackie Long reporting. Well, joining us now is Helen Westerman, who is of the National Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. Helen Westerman, so many people seem to have known that this was happening.
We know that it was a really challenging time. We've just gone into a national lockdown. We had the pandemic. That's not to make excuses.
No, you are making excuses
for that. But
right, I'm not going to listen to this. I can't listen to it because I get angry again. I've got angry enough in this case, in this video. I'm already angry. I've sworn too much. I've said I want to poke my fingers in the eyes of or punch the mum, the stepmom, the wicked stepmother. So I'm not going to watch that because I just get angry with that again. Don't want to get angry again. You know, there's sort of an angry, but what can we do? Can't save. We can't save Arthur because this was so long ago. But you know, and he's gone, bless him. But what can we do? Well, I tell you, the only thing I can do really, and I'm going to do it. This is what I've decided. I'm going to keep talking about these children. Every now, you know, do as many cases as I can do. You know, alongside obviously other cases that I'm covering, but what I've decided is I feel like I'm being sort of guided towards doing these videos to make people angry, to remember people, children like Arthur. It may have been a few years ago now, but 5 years ago, I think it was. We have to keep talking about them and, you know, remember them. We never, ever should forget these children. Arthur, Preston, all the others, you know, and that's only in the UK. Let me just have a little look at Preston's little face. I miss seeing his little face. I love looking at Preston's little face when it was smiley and that. I don't look at the videos that are coming out of when he was abused and that. This is Preston. Beautiful baby. He'll always be a beautiful baby. You know, they can't take away from him what he was. You know, not what they reduced him to. Same with Arthur. You know, they existed. They were. And still are. You know, and we have to remember them. Never forget these children. Let's put a candle up. Awful. Yeah, Kelly, I know you will, you know, that's it. So what I've realised from covering Preston's case, how people have been so kind, like about Preston and cared about him. And yeah, you know, I think my chatters will, like you say, will always be here to show support and love for the children. So I've got to get over this thing. It's only because I don't like getting upset and I don't like upsetting people that I don't like doing the videos about them. But then that's like sort of, it's like brushing it under a carpet, isn't it? So I'm not doing that. And as I say, of course, YouTube doesn't like it. This is why people don't do many videos on these kind of things. It is a very unpalatable subject. Nobody wants to talk about it because it's upsetting and you know, YouTube restricts the algorithm of it. That's why I would always ask people to share these videos because YouTube won't put it into the algorithm properly because of its content. You know, they'll restrict it. I know that they will. You know, but I can't let that stop me, can I? So, you know, what's more important is that we get to know about it. Yeah, an uppercut, Wesley. I'd like to give her an uppercut. I would. I'm too old now, probably, really. She's a nasty piece of work, isn't she? Though I'd have a go, I tell you, I'd have a go. I would have a go. God, that's what she deserves, is a grown person showing her what it feels like for someone to treat you like that. The way she treated that little boy, tiny little boy, 6 years old. It looked like to me like she'd hit him with a hammer on that bruise that was on his shoulder. That wasn't a bruise from, you know, falling back against the wall or even a child hitting. You know, she said it was roughhousing between her, Arthur and her son. No, that looked like someone got a hammer and whacked him on the shoulder or something heavy. So she deserves to find out what that feels like, doesn't she? You know, but really it should be someone who's twice the size of her. You know, I'm not very tall, but yeah, it'd be better if some massive person showing her what it feels like when someone massive attacks you, the fear that she's putting through, the pain, the suffering. What a bitch. God. Urgh. So I'm going to go off now, have my vape and try and calm down. Where is my vape? Oh, no, panic. yeah, I'm going to go and calm down now. But I remember, you know, Preston, Arthur, like you said, Kelly, Sarah Sharif. I think about her a lot. You can't help but think about them. They pop into your head, and you just hope that they're all okay wherever they are now. At least they're in no more pain or suffering. So thank you so much for caring about these children. Thank you for being here with me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, please, and press notifications. I'll see you really soon in the next video. And until then, as always, may your God go with you. Thank you.